If you want to know the best way to be using your Inktense pencils and blocks, then you need to be watching this video. The simple steps that I'm going to show you in this video will make it very easy for you to get positive results when you use the Inktense pencils and or blocks on your fabrics. Your design work will shine when you set things up properly. Before you start using Inktense ink on fabric, you need to know how to use the Inktense pencils and blocks for positive results on your quilts. This quilt is a combination of several techniques. Inktense ink has been used all alone in some of the blocks with nothing else but just the Inktense in the block. In other blocks, Inktense is used in combination with embroidery stitches, free motion quilting, and or applique. So how many Inktense pencils or blocks do you need to get started? Actually, the Inktense pencils and blocks are wonderfully versatile and really quite economical to use. So a simple set of 12 pencils and 12 blocks is enough to get you started and will go a long way in your projects. If you're new to painting on fabric, I would encourage you to begin with the pencils. That really can be just enough. Be certain to select the Inktense ink pencils. They're different from watercolor pencils, and you may see both in combination or when you're shopping and you're looking at what you need to buy. It will distinctly say Inktense ink pencils on the carton. Keep in mind that Inktense on fabric is not very amiable to being washed or laundered. Actually, any color tends to fade with washing, so its use is perhaps best when you use it in artwork and other pieces that don't require cleaning with water. This quilt I designed and crafted is one example of how to effectively use Inktense inks with your art quilts. However, there's one more important step that you must take before beginning any project, including Inktense inks, and that's what's next. Before you start using the Inktense blocks or when you use the Inktense pencils, let's get organized. For example, with the blocks, which is the one I'm going to talk about first, I have a set of 72, and it doesn't matter if you have a set of 6, 10, or 72. This is a 2-layer, and because I use a lot of these, look at the variety of greens, just as an example. Look at the variety here that goes from the yellows into the oranges to the reds. Here's to the blues that go into the very dark blues and into the magentas. If I was to pick up, for example, this color, and it's not marked, and I used it and wanted to use it again, what am I going to do? How am I going to keep a record of what colors are what names? Number one, so that I know how to repeat it again, and if I want to order it, I have to know what it is. You can see that this is a soft product. I can scratch at it, and in fact, what I do a lot of times is I use my paintbrush and just go directly into this. So what I did is I marked by number, the number that Inktense Company gives to each of these. I marked each of these, and then I put a piece of Scotch tape over it, and I know not to use the back end of any of these, so that when I'm using something, for example, this one, if I can get it out for you, I know that this is number 740, and that this I never get wet. So in this case, I used this end of it. And as you can kind of see, what I do is I just directly put my pen, my paintbrush right onto that, pull up the color off of the block and go directly onto the fabric with it. So that's important. The other thing is I also mark the inside, oops, sorry about that, guys. I also mark the inside of the container so that I know exactly where that color goes. That allows me to see the radiation of the color, so I know to go from light to dark without struggling with that. But when I started to see all the different colors, like, wait a minute, this could get confusing. So that's the first thing that I do, is make sure that I've labeled all of them. Then the second thing that I do, and let's go to the pencils for this one. I take the set of pencils, and I don't mark them. They're easy to read. You can pretty much read close up what this number is. It's kind of shiny, but this one is, I think it's a 6 or a 9. Need my bifocal. Oh, we're upside down. Here we are. Yep. So I can see this is a 6, and I've marked it on the inside of the tray. You don't have to do that because you also have got color identification down here. But once you start to paint with these, you're again going to have the same issue of, now, what color was that? So what I've done with all of these, but mostly what I've done with the gosh, sorry about that, I hit it again. What I've done with all of these is I've created a color chart. So everything that is in here is on here, from the yellows and the oranges to the reds to the browns, the blacks, the turquoises, and the greens. And what I did is, you can see the numbers, but there's a P next to it. Because I use the bricks and the pencils a lot, the color can be different because of the condensed area around the brick. It's a lot different than it is around the pen. So each of these numbers also have a P, so that I know this color chart belongs to the ink pencils. And then I made another chart, much bigger chart, for every single one of the bricks. And again, you can see the number is there. This is what it looks like solid, and then I put some textile medium there and pushed it out, and you can see that the color doesn't get lost at all. So every single one of these is that way. Then when I'm creating something, for example, this block, I do the same thing. I marked every single color that I used, as you can see over on the left, to make sure that I can identify, because as you can see, some of these colors are very close, and it would be difficult for me to know, oh, wait a minute, which one was which. And once it's down on the fabric, it's down. So the same thing here. Everything that I used is cataloged over on the left, and then it makes it so much easier to be able to continue. This is on a piece of paper as my test, not on my fabric. All of these charts have been placed on a piece of freezer paper. This thing is probably 3, 4, 5 years old, and it works really well. So I just put a hot iron to the cotton fabric, put it on the shiny side of the freezer paper, and then started to work with this. So this is just one really good way to be able to catalog your Inktense colors, so you know how to take control over when you're using what. This quilt was entirely done with the Inktense pens and blocks. I mean pencils and blocks. I did the quilt as you go technique so that I only had to concentrate on one block at a time. The center block, actually the whole quilt, is called Memories, and I just thought of all the things I liked as a kid. The first one is the Mayflower. Remember the poles that you used to have in school? I think they call them the Maypole or something of that nature. Each child was individually done off the quilt so that if I had to make any adjustments, I could do that without having to worry about ruining any part of the quilt. Each child is painted with either the pens or the blocks, as you can see, outlined, and I tried to keep the type of child consistent all throughout the blocks. That was the large focused one. Then the other memories that I looked at were, do you remember when you used to play marbles? Or jacks, or what were some of the other ones that we used to do? Oh, tiddlywinks, do you remember all of those? That was a fun memory that made me kind of think, let's put that in the block, in the quilt. And again, the background on all of these was painted, actually soft painted, with all of the Inktense blocks. I remember when it was a big deal for a girl to try to get on a baseball team with my brother, and that had to be on there. Do you all recall going through the relay races at school? That was always a fun thing. And I remember when I first learned how to do the double jump rope, that was such a big deal. I don't think there's a child alive that can not remember trying to go higher and higher in any swing set that they put their little hiney on so that they could see if they could go as high as possible. Then, of course, we've got that wonderful hopscotch technique. I remember that was on the sidewalks, and we would use chalk, and we would just have the most fun with that. And then when the rain came and washed it away, it was always a sad day, but we could bring it back up again. Again, each child, as you can see, is individually stitched with free motion onto the quilt. And the memory just wouldn't be Right, unless we had something to do with either selling lemonade or selling something of some nature. All of us have some kind of a little entrepreneur within us. And I remember especially in the fall when we would do the nosedives into the pile of leaves. That was always a magical, magical time. If you liked this video, I hope that you will subscribe. I thoroughly enjoyed making it for you, and I hope that you got something out of it. Also, when you subscribe, you really do help our channel a lot. It helps us to continue to bring to you the very best in art quilting techniques, designs, and artists. Thank you again for watching.